Oh, it's you.
Oh, hi there. My name is Wade, but my frenemies call me Dead. Oh my god, where's my body?
Just as a reminder, they can't make any more Marvel Universe figures, but they can make that. Just in case you need a reminder that life is unfair.
It's a costume.
Excuse me?
What?
Might I ask why you're wearing the black Spider-Man suit?
Well, because you're already wearing the red mask, and my usual color scheme is already red and blue, so I figured this gave my outfits a bit more diversity. Plus, it's just a cool design.
But you're a white dude.
No, I'm a Bionicle.
What?
Besides, he said at the end of the movie that anybody could wear the mask.
Ugh, fine. Just don't come crying to me when you get canceled, you cultural appropriator.
I can only get canceled if people actually care about me.
Yeah. Don't ask me how that works.
Spider-Man, Spider-Man. Current subject of discussion, Spider-Man. Debuting in Amazing Fantasy number 15 back in 1962, through the combined efforts of Stan Lee and Steve Ditko, Spider-Man has certainly maintained a nice presence in pop culture ever since. Comics, movies, TV shows, video games, toys, YouTube channels desperately trying to be more, he's everywhere. A decent bit of his popularity has got to be because of his power set. Super strength, heightened agility, spider sense, wall crawling. But let's face it, his most popular superpower is the one he needs a gadget to do for him. Most of the time. I mean, who wouldn't want the ability to shoot a line from their wrists and go swinging through the air in an instant, only to then shoot another line and go swinging again over and over? Who wouldn't want to be able to grab some Cheez-Its from across the theater and wrestle with a friend over them? That was always my main love for the web shooters, and honestly, that's such an amazing part of it. And toy makers know this, so in the 90s we finally got the first proper web shooter toys. But first, some history. Apparently, in 1990, or 1991, judging by the patent documents I found, a man named Stephen Kimball patented a toy design for a web shooter, though obviously not by such a specific name. He approached Marvel about producing the toy, but they declined. Cut to a few years later, Toy Biz made their own version of the toy, and Kimball sued them over it in 1997. He got royalties, but after he saw them expanding the line at some point, he sued them again. And Marvel didn't comply since Kimball's original patent expired in 2010, and was thus null. And the courts agreed. Admittedly, this was a fairly streamlined version of events, so don't take my words as gospel on that whole shebang. Nor do I think Kimball's design was that similar to what was made by Toy Biz, but this video would have felt incomplete without that bit of info, so I'm putting it here. Now, on to the 90s shooter. I'm not too keen on the outward design of these, but I do like how easy it looks to reload. Very comparable to how the 90s cartoon always handled it, so that's a nice touch.
We got him here! No, we got him here!
Moving on to more of my area of web shooters, and we get to the 2002 web shooters, which seems to have been the one to introduce the extra water tank for when you run out of web fluid. But oddly, they don't even give it any more than a small mention at the end.
The Spider-Man Web Blaster comes with 2 cans of web fluid and also shoots water.
Then, by 2004, the water tank is a more heavily advertised feature, with a new triple action web blaster, the triple part coming thanks to a new dart cartridge that you could fire. A neat addition on the darts, even if they didn't stick. The first web shooter also put in a cover-up for the can to try and make it blend in with the included glove. Though why nobody would ever question this massive tumor on your wrist underneath the cover, I may never know. Also, the 90s and 2002 web shooters have the same kit on the box. You can even see where they poorly photoshopped his arm on the 2002 box. Anyway,
Just pop in the water blasting tank and everyone gets soaked.
move on to 2005, and is that a triple screen Mega Blast web shooter in your pants? Or are you just happy to see me? Yeah, this is definitely when Toy Biz realized they could hold kids' wallets hostage with web fluid refills, and thus decided to start making you go through a can much more quickly. It also makes no sense for when you want to play as Spider-Man, since he never shoots them like this unless he's making a net. Sure, in the commercial you see a kid blasting some... holy crap, are those Spider-Man classics? With it all at once, but getting that kind of shot is like trying to get all three characters lined up side by side in a way that'll actually get you rings in Sonic Heroes. Like yeah, you try it, you might get it, but it rarely works out as intended. Can you guess what random 2000s video game I was playing while writing this script? The only other thing of note here is the light up mask that came with it. Mainly because I think some Chinese bootleggers got their hands on the mold and are still reproducing it to this day. If not just a similar mold based off of it. Heck, they even introduced a Spider-Man 3 style black version that I kinda want.
Oh, of course you'd like the black one. Shut up.
But yeah, not much to say here beyond the lack of a can cover. Move on to 2007 and Hasbro's efforts and...
Realistic spinning webs and water. Now you can have the power of Spider-Man at your
Oh, the
fingertips
money!
with real spinning
Ah, the money!
I kid, of course. The agenda to sell web fluid canisters is certainly still there, but at least it's all in one direction, and can be said to resemble something Spider-Man occasionally does. Besides, we have a scarier contender with this toy line. This... heckin' chonker. Who thought of this? Who looked at the triple action web blaster and said, alright, I want all to be rotatable at once, none of this swapping crap, and I want 2 extra modes. Why would you make this? It looks like you need a license to even use it. Whoever had this as a kid, you must have been pretty hardcore. You didn't go with a basic one with a reversible mask that actually looked pretty cool. You went all in. You want people to know who you are. So yeah, that kind of left a small gap between major changes to the web shooter formula. Sure, we'd have some more biggins come in, some big action figures that could use the fluid canisters, some guns even, and even a few options that got rid of the can entirely. But never anything truly worthy of topping... that. So let's get back on track with the mainline basic shooters, which really started to settle in on a standard design with the Amazing Spider-Man in 2012. Then sometime around 2013 or 14, they removed the cover for the can. And after the Ultimate Spider-Man Color Shock Slingers, where they sold 3 versions of the same toy at once for maximum profit, they replaced the metal part in the trigger with an all-plastic assembly, which is where we are today with the Super Web Slingers, as they're called. You can get many variations on this, but mine is the Spider-Verse version, since that was down to about $13 from its usual $20 back when I bought it. So, let's get into it. So, getting out of the box and... yep, that's it. Okay, let's disassemble and analyze. When you open the box, you will find yourself with a can of web fluid, a water tank, a glove, the lever mechanism, and the part that holds everything onto the wrist. Well, and a manual, but who really cares about that? Anyway, for the shooter itself, I'm kinda mixed. On one hand, I like the simple aesthetic of the whole thing. We don't need anything big and fancy for it because Spider-Man's web shooters are never that big and fancy. It just needs to shoot the web in water, and we're good. However, stability is a massive issue on this thing. Going from our smallest issue to our biggest, let's start with the part that attaches to your wrist. The plastic bit looks fine, but count the straps. 1! At the very back. Previous models have had 2 straps, and this one feels like it needs at least 1 more small strap towards the front to stay stable. It even has the holes for one, so I don't know what happened here. Our second issue is how the lever mechanism attaches. Now, I understand that you want it to pop onto the canister that you're currently using, but the way it attaches to the main body feels really weird. You line up a small tab that just loosely keeps everything in place, while the can holds on by the sides of the wrist piece. That means if, say, you push the lever too far down while shooting, it will detach from the mechanism entirely. It's not even that big of an issue to fix either. Just lengthen the tab a smidge, and have a sort of forward-facing hook built in. That way you can slide it into the tab, and have the extra stability to keep the piece on. And now we have the lever itself as a slight issue. While I do like that it can turn and be put back for when you're not using it, I don't like how awkward it feels. I'm not going like this, I'm going like this, and it just feels wrong. On top of the fact that the thing constantly feels like it's gonna fall apart. I never had any of the previous web shooters, since my mom always thought they were too messy, but they at least looked like they had build quality, you know? This is a $20 toy, and I've had $10 toys that felt less flimsy. Alright, let's get into actually loading this sucker. For water, it's pretty easy. Bada bing, bada boom, it's done. I think they want you to line this small hole with the hole in the lever mechanism, but the manual doesn't say anything about it, so I can't be sure. Wet fluid is a bit more tricky though. First off, before you do anything, take the cap off the can. This is important. Secondly, align the red dot in the can to the hole on the top of the canister, and put the lever on it. Put the cap back on the can, and place the entire thing on the wrist part. Now, why did I make you take off the cap? Well, it's quite simple.
Because if you don't take the cap off, this thing will likely waste half your wet fluid before you can even try it out.
I don't know what it is that causes this, and while there have been occasions where it hasn't turned out terribly for me, it's better to be safe than sorry. This is a massive issue that for some reason the manual makes no mention of. Did this thing never come up when you tested this product? I was just lucky to discover the issue through Amazon reviews, so I knew to test for it before I gave the web fluid a try. Well, we're locked and loaded, so let's shoot some webs. Huh. Yeah, the webs aren't the best on this thing. It's basically just a glorified can of silly string that runs out fairly quickly, even if you're using it properly. To be fair, this is probably as close to real web fluid as I'll ever be seeing, but more often than not, you're just gonna have foam spurting out. At the very least, water shoots out very consistently, and for a decent amount of time. I stopped shooting it in my test runs because I got bored, not because I ran out. So the toy is worth it on the water squirting merits at least. However, I will admit some massive disappointment that all this is a messy toy. Spider-Man's web shooters have always appealed to me personally due to their usefulness in areas such as making nets, swinging across New York, and grabbing objects with a quick whip line. And this toy embodies none of that. Say what you will about a toy lightsaber, sonic screwdriver, or even a power morpher, but those toys manage to embody what we like about the props our heroes and villains use, and make us feel awesome just by wielding them. The toy web shooters, at least in the form that Hasbro is currently putting out, just make me feel like an idiot with a toy. And honestly, that's the worst feeling something can give you. Well, I guess I've said everything I have to really say today. Overall, while the history and atmosphere around the toy is pretty cool, the toy itself is a disappointment. Though if you have the Spider-Man 3 Ultimate Web Blaster, you are highly likely to be a danger to society. I'm Bento Fire, signing out.
Goblin! You aren't getting away from